Welcome back to Without a Doubt, the podcast where we celebrate living life authentically and organically as ourselves. We're the ones who believe in creating our own paths and living our truths out loud. Join in on an honest and open conversation about self-discovery and growth. I'm your girl Mad, your host. I'm a freelance entrepreneur, a 30-something-year-old human that has never exactly done what was expected of me. I'm a sprinkle of reality, glimmer of sunshine, and as unfiltered as they come. I'm here to remind you that it's okay to live life differently and that you don't have to be what is expected of you and that your happiness matters. Rolling into almost 1,000 downloads, I could not be more excited or motivated to keep sharing this podcast. Thank you for being here. Without a doubt, this would not be possible without you if you didn't listen in and keep coming back week after week. I find myself constantly checking the numbers on this and the number of downloads, sometimes daily, and I actually try not to because not all metrics are actually a true measure of success. 1,000 downloads is honestly not that many, but I'm still clapping for that because that's like 25 listens an episode, I guess. I try not to measure all metrics. They're not all true measurements of success, but I think I'm more curious about what you're actually here and loving. If you ever have some topic ideas, you want to discuss something, or you want to talk about an episode even further, or just want to say hi in an email me at itsyourgirlmad@gmail.com. It's in the show notes below. If you haven't actually rated this podcast too, please hook your girl up with 5 stars and share when you're listening in. I would love to know when you listen to these. Let's talk about a little bit what's going on in my world. I honestly feel like everything is just spinning and I cannot get a grip. Time seems to be moving faster in 2024 and I'm feeling all sorts of behind already. And the year just started. This year started off with an in-law passing away. We had a house that we had to clean out. We recently had a garage sale, got a new tortoise, got some new tattoos. I'm attempting to make plans for the new year, see some new friends, travel. Those are the things I want to do. And I've also been working catering jobs, back on my thrift hauls on YouTube, and my plate just feels overloaded. I am constantly doing something. I find myself saying all the time, I want more simple, I want less, and I do live that way. I'm not your typical go out and buy a purse if I get a bonus or drop a few bills on new clothes. Like, I don't do that. I'm a secondhand girly. I like to thrift, and I love finding shit for a good price. In the last few years, I've definitely simplified my life, and I think the pandemic and the world shutting down was kind of like a beaming light to show me that I do like slow living. Despite the fact that I live here in South Florida where the hustle and bustle is always hustling and bustling, it's like the rat race that South Florida has on people, it's a chokehold. I think I live most differently than a lot of other South Florida people here where I live. Like, people are always keeping up with the next best thing. They're getting brand new cars, brand new technology. Someone recently asked me when I was going to get a new car, like, nothing's wrong with my car, so why the fuck do I need a new car? Is it because or think we know that, like, having the nicer things, having a bigger house, like, that vibe maybe can help you level up? I definitely live in my own made-up rat race where I have these ideas and things I think I need to accomplish before a certain time, which may be a little bit out of fear of not actually living out my life to the fullest. Like, I want to do everything, and I want a quiet country life. I want to be able to hike in the middle of the day, going out to feed a Highland cow. Like, I want that. Social media has showed me that I can do that, and I will. But all these dreams, thoughts, ideas make me feel like I'm not going to be able to live out my life, and that comes from knowing that it's out there and I still haven't achieved it. Have you ever heard the saying, ignorance is bliss? I think some people have this tendency to think it's harsh, or honestly, I feel it is more bliss. The phrase ignorance is bliss is not inherently rude or mean. It does suggest that sometimes it's easier or more comfortable to just not know certain things. It can be used in a lot of different contexts, such as describing a situation where someone is happier not knowing the truth about something. When you don't know something, you can't be missing out. You just can't be. Dreaming about what you want versus knowing what an actual, tangible, like, possibility, those are two different things. I was recently talking on a podcast episode with my friend from India, and she was saying how she has this aunt that's just so happy. She lives in a rural, remote village in India. She might not even know how to read. She obviously doesn't have social media, and she just lives in present time. She doesn't have anything else to compare her life to, so she knows that her bubble is that little blissful thing. You could say, well, that's kind of sad. She lives in like a remote village and she hasn't really learned or embraced or, grown with technology, but that's her life. That's what it's like in that village. And she knows the most and greatest in her own bubble and appreciates and values that. So she doesn't have anything more to compare to, and she lives in her world blissfully. The saying ignorance is bliss originates actually from 1742, going on like almost 300 years. That quote goes, where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. It's actually from like a whole long poem, but sometimes it is way better not knowing something. And in 2024, where mental health is still the top of the trends list, protecting our mental health is key. We don't need to know it all. We don't always need to be in the know. It's human nature, though, to want to explore, have questions, be inquisitive, and I think just to be nosy. But there's a lot of things that won't necessarily affect you, and you don't need to know them all. I stopped watching the news when I bought my house in 2019. I do miss watching The Real on like the CW or whatever, but Kendra and I decided we didn't need cable. Best thing I ever did. I don't want to follow the local news outlets or any Western media outlet. If I want to know about current world events, I can go online, I can Google, I can do all the things. I don't need to be constantly filling my brain with mindless shit that lives rent-free. Allow me to introduce that bliss. I often get asked, have you seen that? Did you hear about that? And most of the time I have no fucking idea what people are talking about because I don't really scroll so much on social media, and I also don't watch the news. I don't keep up with all of the latest trendy TV shows. I watch what I like to watch, including Survivor, Below Deck, and 90 Day Fiancé. Those we can talk about. I do indulge in world news and shit happening around us. I pulled out of that Western media trap, though. Like, there's nothing ever good on the news. There's nothing positive or good, so I ridded that. Other things I think of when we think of ignorance as bliss is I had this peer who once told me she didn't know what someone on drugs looks like. She said she was naive, and I told her that was a blessing. She didn't have to experience that. Not knowing is more blissful. Seeing someone overdose, crack the fuck out, or just losing it in life with drugs is really hard to handle. I've seen it firsthand as a child with a parent addicted to pills. The ignorance in these experiences can sometimes keep humans a lot softer. I feel like I'm a hardened person sometimes because of those experiences, like the ignorance of bliss of not knowing that keeps you there, the soft. The concept about this bliss is sometimes like a protective bubble, I guess. It's the bubble parents use when they talk about Santa or achieving your dreams. Life itself, you protect them. You protect them from the harsh realities of the world. Maybe the truest form of ignorance is bliss, in childhood. It's like the best example because you truly don't know as a child until you learn it or someone explains it to you, and you make up your own stories and things, and usually they have good outcomes. As we get older, we learn more, we experience more, we get hardened, we find these burdens, and we get thrown into situations. Like, if we get thrown into situations as far as starting something new, a lot of the times we already know the risk. But what if you didn't know the risks? Would you be more willing to jump? The lack of knowing helps shield you from the negative a lot of times. Like I said, when I learned how to ride a bike, I didn't really know I could fall. I guess I did know I could fall when I did fall, but it wasn't that bad, so I got back on. Time and time again, I fell, and some of them were worse than others. And my cousin, who was 6 months younger than me, was also learning how to ride a bike, and she watched me fall and decided, nope, I'm good. I'm going to keep my training wheels on, and avoided that risk of falling because she was safe. She knew. I was in that ignorance is bliss until it happened the first time. My lack of knowledge is what actually got me onto that bike and riding without the training wheels. I was an avid cyclist, as I mentioned also before on a few episodes. I rode 100-mile challenges, multiples of those, and my very first ride that really, really, really sticks out with me was a 65-mile ride, and I was in a group, and I clipped in, which in the outdoor cycling world, like, it's not just, you don't just ride a bike and put your foot in a pedal. There's no like cage that covers the toe part. You have a shoe that has a little triangle piece in the bottom, and it physically snaps into the actual pedal. Now, this is not as easy as it seems to balance, get started, clip in. Now imagine you're in a group riding elbow to elbow close to about 50 other people. Yes. Now, clipping in and out of a bike takes a lot of practice. A lot of people will do this by themselves a lot of times, but the very first time I ever clipped in was the very first time I rode a long distance ride in a group for the very first time. Yes, I did it all. I was very naive and ignorance is bliss, but I could have taken down this entire pack. Clipping out is super hard. It's like you have to really learn to do that second hand and be quick. Clipping in and out requires like a little quick ankle shift to the right or left, like outward from the bike. So clipping in and out practice needs a lot of work. Anyway, I could have taken down the whole damn pack. I had no group cycling knowledge or etiquette. I didn't even know that the pack could have taken me down, yet alone me be the catalyst of an entire crash. The ignorance gave me that confidence, though, to ride that entire ride at like almost 27 miles an hour, which is fast as fuck on a bike, okay? I felt like a badass until I started telling people at the rest stops that this was my first ride, my first time clipped in, and people were looking at me like, what the fuck? No, she is not. I was in Bliss until about the halfway point, and then people were stunned I never had clipped in until that day. My lack of knowledge definitely helped me get in there and finish the ride, but I think the rest of the ride I was like, dang, really thinking about all the things. Let's also talk about ignorance is bliss in the animal world. Cats, for example, they don't care about what's going on in the world. I think cats are asshole. They just want a warm spot to sleep. They just want to be fed, and they like to meow, meow. And somehow they're the happiest creatures on earth. Like, there is something in that whole ignorance is bliss, after all, I guess, for cats. Also for birds. They don't worry about their next meal. They live in the present moment. My mom always talks about the birds. I think that's why I thought about that. In family, I think a lot of times we were talking about ignorance is bliss. I think when I was growing up, we didn't have social media and things like that. And you didn't have the opportunity to find out that you missed out on something until after the fact. But nowadays with social media, you can find out instantly if you're missing out. You can find out if you were not invited to something. And I think it's a lot easier to see what's going on and to have that knowledge of hurt. And I think this is where ignorance is bliss. If you do know, it kind of sucks. I think FOMO runs into the ignorance is bliss saying fear of missing out. It's because you have the knowledge. And it's just social media does the best job at making you feel like you're left out. You can easily feel like, dang, how come I didn't get invited to that wedding? How come I'm not invited to that birthday party? How come I'm not invited to that? It's so easy to see that, especially because you follow all these people that aren't even necessarily your friends. And this is just a reminder that you are free to unfollow, delete, remove accounts, family members, even that are consuming your mental health. It's when you block your ex on all your accounts because you don't need to know. The bliss of moving on is where you are. Knowing sometimes only hurts more. Ignorance is bliss sometimes. So if you don't need to know, you don't fucking need to know. Okay. As the quote goes, where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise. Basically, he's saying that when you're young and innocent, you're happier than when you're old and wiser and burdened with the weight of knowledge. Am I right? But I sometimes think, is it really true? While being ignorant can sometimes bring a sense of peace, but it can also lead you into dangerous situations, like me cycling in that pack and not having any knowledge that I could have been the accident person or I could have been really hurt in that. If you're ignorant of the risks of certain behaviors, you might engage without realizing the consequences, jumping into a lake and not knowing how deep it is. Things like that. In many cases, it's easier just to reject new information than to really even change your belief. It's less mentally taxing and it allows us to maintain more of a sense of certainty and control in your own life, which will lead you to cling to our ignorance, even if it's not in our best interest. Sometimes we just don't want to know things and we still fucking do it. You know how global warming is actually happening yet? We're still chopping down trees, entire forests and habitats. We know that trash is taking over our planet, yet somehow we are still mass producing plastic and we allow plastic bags and it's at an all high production. I don't actually have a stance in ignorance is bliss being better or not. It can be a blessing and it can be a curse when you don't know all the facts. But sometimes walking into the dark isn't as scary as actually walking into the dark and knowing that there are monsters in there. Not knowing sometimes is a lot easier. Where there is reward, there will be risk. Where there is good, there will be bad. And I do think that we as humans start to overwhelm our minds with the what if, the risks, the negatives. On the positive side, the phrase ignorance is bliss can mean that sometimes it's better to live in simplicity and ignorance rather than burdening yourself with unnecessary knowledge or complexities. Like letting shit live rent free that doesn't matter to you isn't gonna benefit you. This can help you focus on the present moment, find more gratitude, live with more gratitude, make your life feel a lot less heavy. The pursuit of knowledge can be rewarding and fulfilling, and learning new things can actually help broaden your horizons and help you better understand the world around us. But sometimes it also opens up your eyes to all of the things that come along with it, the cons that come along with the pros. In our lifetimes, it's our duty to be the best version of ourselves, to make this planet a better planet. Whether that means finding more information to fuel up with, pushing things away that may not serve us, or just living our lives as real as possible. Meaning creating the reality that you want to be a part of. Load up on what you need to make this life and your bubble bigger. Learning and exploring are the steps to knowledge, but living a more peaceful, blissful life is what I actually believe is what you need to do in order to find a happier, more joyful presence here on this planet. You do you, though. Find the bliss in the things that you don't know and tap into the information that's going to actually harness your power. Leaving you with this, you have the ability to create the bliss you want. Without a doubt, you are a badass, and don't you forget it. I'll see you next week on Wednesday, like always, for episode number 25. See ya. Bye.